Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Soul Care Nomad. My name is Matthew Wilbanks, and I'm here with my good friend and mentor, Dr. John Okinaga. What a week.
I know, I'm tired.
Yeah. We had the Super Bowl on Sunday, and then you got sick.
I didn't get sick. I was actually fine. Nicole got sick.
Oh, okay. I mean, you did move class online and make your TA teach because you were sick.
Correct. Well, I was sick on Tuesday.
Uh-huh.
Nicole was sick on Sunday.
Okay. But just an update on the wonderful bank account stuff. He's fine.
Oh, yeah, I'm fine.
It's all good.
Sort of. I mean, eBay's trying to take money again, but I'm like, you took it already. Anyway, we're good.
Shout out eBay. So this episode, what we like to do, or especially what I like to do, is I like to pair things together that kind of move, that are closely related. Last episode, we talked about anxiety, and this episode, we are going to talk about depression, everyone's favorite. So, what are your kind of opening thoughts about depression, Dr. O?
I'm glad we're talking about it, especially in the context of the church. Kind of the same vein as the anxiety talk. Anytime I do this lecture in school or wherever, they're like, hey, finding someone who's willing to talk about this, because most pastors don't. I don't know if it's because of fear or I don't know why, but it's something that we all know someone who struggles with depression in one way, shape, or form. And it is impacting our churches. It is impacting specifically our young people today. And we want to make sure that people are cared for well.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's another big thing is what really another part of this podcast is we want to equip, especially people who are in ministry, how to start these conversations. Because I think that's one of the biggest fears is people don't know what to say. So for instance, my church, we do something that's called grief share. And what happens when someone experiences loss of some sort, the people around them, the people who are experiencing grief, sometimes want to be, just loved and told that we're praying for you without, getting too many things thrown at them. But a huge part is whenever someone is experiencing grief or especially depression, sometimes people just don't know what to say, and they're afraid that they'll say the wrong thing. And so that's one of the things we want to do. We want to help those who are going through depression, but also give people a snapshot of what are some things that you can do to maybe just walk with someone in depression. So how is our conversation going to go?
Kind of like how I do in class, I guess. Some practical advice, kind of what where we're at today in regards to depression. Letting people know that they're not alone. Mm-hmm. In essence, I'm going to share a few statistics about depression. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about some practical advice to help people, and then obviously we'll close it. What's most important is a biblical approach.
Right.
So
great. Bring on those wonderfully depressing stats.
Those wonderful depressing stats. This is actually from the World Health Organization, and yeah. We're not going to get into politics here, but, once again, statistics can always be changed to fit a particular narrative. But, and I thought that for a while, to be honest. And the statistic, and actually I'll use the CDC statistic first. So this was May 2020, I believe, or May 2021. And it said that for our young people, 18 to 25, 75% were struggling with depression and anxiety, and 25% were struggling with suicidal ideations. And the first time I heard that, I was like, yeah, that's just way too high. That's just, the government doing funky numbers again. But when I was looking at my counseling sessions with students and those between the ages of 18 to 25, it wasn't 75% that were coming in for counseling. It was 100%. And then I started to really look at Facebook and when people were putting my friend died of a suicide, or I know someone who died of a suicide, and I just saw this uptick in my friends here in America were posting it, and it was really shocking to see how many people were struggling with depression, anxiety, and suicide. And then, this is looking at the World Health Organization, specifically a study published by BMC Medicine. And they said that roughly depression affects 121 people globally. And it's a significant health problem, fourth leading cause of disability. But what really shocked me was it was a high income countries that actually had a higher rate of depression than the lower income countries. You would figure because, we have first world problems, we don't have to worry about food, we don't have to worry about shelter, that our depression rate should actually be lower than other countries. The leaders were France at 21%. The United States was second at 19.2%. But then if we look at like the lower to middle income countries, like China, 6.5% depression, Mexico, 8% depression. And it was just really shocking what the difference was. And, and one of the practical advice I'm going to share a little bit later that I think is a driving contributor to depression rates is social media.
Mm-hmm.
We have these social media influencers that are influencing our young people, and they're presenting a lifestyle that's not attainable.
Right.
It's not,
Yep, and we talked about that last episode too, keeping up with the Kardashians, how you can turn on any channel. You could even turn on, HGTV, Home and Garden TV network. And there's people that are just flaunting, we're going to go live in Maui. Here's a, $2.5 billion home. And what does my wife do? She's a photographer, and I'm a website analyst. Kind of just like, how does that make money?
Yeah.
But that's the kind of things that we're thrown at constantly, even in something where we're just like, I want to watch a good episode of Middle America Class House Hunters, and they're like, we're gonna go to Maui. I'm just like, never mind. I'm turning off the TV.
Yeah, how they're gonna spend $100,000 remodeling the bathroom.
Oh my gosh, that kills me, because I was like, I wish I had $100.
And it's sad, that we start to associate a good life by what we can buy or what we have.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't hear about someone in. I think there was a video by Johan Hari. He did a TED talk about a guy in Cambodia who was depressed, and his depression was because he had to work in the rice field because he was missing legs, and the pain it caused him. Like, that's a cause for depression. Mm-hmm. For our young people, the fact that you don't have the PS5 or the Xbox XYZ or whatever it is, that could be a cause for depression. A couple other things that I want to share statistic-wise is women, unfortunately, are twice as likely as men to experience depression. That kind of, and I don't know if that's necessarily true, though. Is it just because we don't talk about it as men?
Yeah.
We've been conditioned that real men don't cry, or whatever that new thing is. And we have to also look at causes for depression. What are some contributing factors? And divorce, separation, or death of a spouse is commonly linked to depression. Mm-hmm. And guess who has one of the highest divorce rates? America. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, we're conditioned to, Dr. Bell and Dr. Catanzaro also said, I want what I want when I want it. Mm-hmm. And we've been conditioned that that's actually an okay way to look at things.
Yep.
And when we don't get what we want, Dr. Cat and Dr. Bell called that pride, but I also think that contributes to depression. You see someone with that new car, or, for me, card collecting, like someone has the Mickey Mouse red 5 out of 5. Mm-hmm.
I have no idea what.
Yeah, you have no idea. I want that. Uh-huh. And the fact that I have a Mickey Mouse out of 500,
yeah.
Is it good? Yeah, it's good. But we just want what we want, and when we don't get it, we get bothered by that. So depression, it crosses, in America or first world countries, it crosses socioeconomic lines very easy. But one of the things I wanted to share that actually shocked me, because we tend to link depression with suicide. Mm-hmm. Like, that's just a commonality that we've always found a link with. One of the lowest rates of depression in the world is Japan. Mm. the lowest depression rate. They're one of the leaders, lowest depression rate, but they're also one of the highest with suicide.
Right.
And that's always fascinated me. I've never been able to figure that out. So I just want to share, that just because you don't struggle with depression doesn't mean that there isn't other issues that are happening in your life.
Right.
And one of my pastors back in California, Dave Brisbane, he said, we're all recovering from something.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have junk in our life. And what are we doing with that junk in our life? So those are just some stats that I wanted to share.
Yeah. And for us, went to Japan and kind of had that, suicide talk. And when we did the biblical counseling conference, we had about, I don't know, maybe 50, 60 people every night, maybe a little less. But when we had the suicide talk, we had 70, 80.
Yeah.
Like we had more people that were interested in suicide because it was, a lot closer related to home than some other things. But I don't know. It's always interesting to look at statistics and then actual people that come and talk to you, and how sometimes it's just like all the statistics, I guess, are right here where I am. But it is that thing that people just don't want to share their struggle because of trying to put a good face forward. You put at least 4 masks on because you've got 4 different people you got to talk to that day, and you don't want to show your true self. And I think, lying in Scripture is a sin.
Yeah.
And the issue we find in America is people are very good at lying. And it is that trying to get not just to the heart issue, but to get people to realize they don't have to put on a face.
Yeah.
They can just be themselves. And I think that's very important. And it's something that a lot of times, counselors and pastors and just ministers at large don't fully understand. They just want to get straight to the issue. And it's just like, they got to trust you first.
Yeah.
They're not going to open up if they don't trust you.
And, I think this will probably be another topic we do later on, actually be on like discipleship and what that actually looks like. And
I got a plan.
I know you have a plan, but, I think that's where, if our churches did more discipleship and preventative stuff, we would have less individuals struggling with depression, anxiety, suicide, addictions, whatever, but we don't do discipleship well. And I think we're seeing a byproduct of what happens when the church doesn't function as a church should.
Yep.
And we're seeing more and more individuals saying that they're struggling with depression, and whatever, I'll go there. I think that we need to address that people are struggling with sadness. And I think we may too easily default to the word depression. Because that's a big word with heavy connotation.
It's a catch-all term these days,
right? But like if my parents are here a lot of the time, right? And every time my parents leave, I'll admit for about a week I'm sad. Does that mean I'm depressed? No, I miss them. I think that's a natural human response to miss someone you like being around.
Yep.
Now, if it's 5 weeks later and me missing them is causing me not to come to work, it's causing me to sleep in, all right, then we need to address it. That's not normal, right? But I think we need to be very careful. Like Alan Francis, the DSM editor, wrote a book called Saving Normal, and he argues that we have medicalized normal human behavior. And I think one of the prime examples is this catch-all term, depression. Now, are there people who, I guess the secular term, clinically depressed, that there really are? Absolutely. Like I've worked with guys who are struggling. They can't see the light at the end of the tunnel ever. Like every single day, it's like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. Like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And should we be caring for them? Absolutely. And we care for them well. And, I kind of want to launch into some of the practical advice. When I'm dealing with someone who's struggling on that level of woe is me all the time. And we all have that friend or family member that, the cup could be 9/10 full and they're going to focus on the 1/10 that's not full. So what do I do for those guys who are in that position? Number one is remind them tomorrow's a new day. Just because it is rough doesn't mean that tomorrow's going to be rough, right? Whatever happened today, the emotions, thoughts, and moods doesn't have to be there tomorrow. Right. One of my favorite hymns is the steadfast love of the Lord. For those of you too young to have ever heard this hymn, it's not a hip new hymn.
Hey, I grew up in a church where we sung hymns. We just never sung this one.
Yeah, I don't know how you guys missed this one, but the lyrics to this song is the steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. Your mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning, new every morning. Great is your faithfulness, O Lord. Great is your faithfulness. And for me, it's reminding myself that tomorrow's a new day.
Yep.
And that his mercies never end.
Yep.
And, for me as someone who comes from the addiction world, I'm just grateful to be alive. Mm-hmm. I'm just grateful to be alive, to wake up every morning without being brain dead or whatever. And, some of you might argue that there's days where I'm brain dead, especially days I don't get sleep, but I'm just thankful. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to impart that very basic truth to the guys I work with. Be grateful for today, because tomorrow's not a guarantee. Number 2 is don't believe the negative lies that dominate your mind. And oftentimes with depression, we tend to focus, or those who struggle with depression, I guess I've struggled with depression in the past. There's times that we believe the negative lies that we're a piece of garbage, or there's no hope, or no one loves us, or all the lies that Satan tells us. Mm-hmm. And what I want to remind people is our mind be telling us that we are unworthy, or a piece of garbage, or no one likes us. And those are the lies that come through our minds. But the sooner that we can recognize that these are unbiblical thoughts, that we can combat it with biblical truth. And when our identity is based on the fact that we are children of the Most High, the children of God, and he created us in his image, we realize that God doesn't create garbage.
Right.
I think I showed a video I forget what class I show it in. It might be in my grief and crisis class. And I show an autism video. Mm-hmm. It's called Chasing Lampposts. And one of my side projects is, researching autism. And I came across this video. And in the video, there's this 30s, early 40s guy. He looks different. He's weird. Mm-hmm. I mean, he doesn't fit the part. But I'll never forget what he said. And it's so true, not just for, those who struggle with autism, but it's true for all of us. And he said that God doesn't create garbage. And that central truth is so refreshing and so reassuring, that I'm created in his image and God doesn't create garbage. And if I can help my guys understand that, then they'll be able to, address all of those negative and unbiblical thoughts with the realization that God doesn't create garbage. And if you're struggling with depression right now and you need someone to help you distinguish what is true from false, talk to someone. Mm-hmm. Talk to someone.
Yep. Yeah, that was something that's come up in my life is feelings of especially inadequacy, I think, is a big part of depression as well. Mm-hmm. And it's something I've struggled with for a while. And this past week, we have a home group meeting on Wednesday nights, and I'm a floater since I'm a minister of the church, and so I went to the older house that has some of our senior adults in it, and I get there, and the husband that owns the home, he's just like, "So you're leading tonight, right?" I was like, "I guess I am." And so I just lead it. We've been walking through Nehemiah, and I was talking to my pastor yesterday, and he told me he walked into the office this morning, and our church secretary was in the home, and she just goes, "I just want to sit in a class with Matthew all the time." But this isn't me trying to build myself up. It's me just taking this moment to say, then no matter what happens, sometimes people want to hear what you have to say. Yeah. And it's important that when we get those feelings of inadequacy or things like that, when you talk to people sometimes want to be around you. Mm-hmm. Now, if you're just talking, very negatively and very depressingly, then people kind of don't want to be around that.
Yeah, I mean, being around negative people all the time, it's a drain.
Yep.
But I think at the same time, as believers, we're called to come alongside those who are weak and come mm-hmm. alongside those who are not necessarily fitting in the group. Yep. That we're supposed to go after that one lost sheep, and sit with them.
Yep. And it is going to take time. It's not going to be easy.
Yeah. Number 3 and 4, I'm going to kind of combine them together. One is set SMART goals, and number 4 is to have a routine. So what does SMART mean? I like these acronyms. SMART is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. And I encourage those I work with to set daily SMART goals. And for someone who's struggling with depression, I like the KISS acronym also is keep it simple, stupid. I don't
Silly.
No, I don't say it in class, but podcasts I can actually say it. Keep it simple, stupid, right? So for someone who's struggling with depression, a SMART goal can just be, I've been sleeping into noon. In unrealistic goals, I'm gonna wake up at 6:30 and run a 5K. A SMART goal, I'm gonna wake up at 11 next week. And the following week, I'm gonna wake up at 10. And the following week, I'm gonna wake up at 9. Following week, I'm gonna wake up at 8. And that builds into the number 4, and that's having a routine. Sometimes depression can impact the most simple routines. It's easy to lay in bed, hitting the snooze button over and over again. So make a schedule and stick to it. So that also ties into that SMART goal. You don't have to plan out every single minute of the day, but it might help.
Yep.
It might help. I look at my calendar. It causes Nicole to have anxiety looking at my calendar, but I need to be disciplined. If I'm not disciplined in what I do, it's very easy for me to revert back to old behaviors.
Yep.
And that old behavior is not God honoring. That old behavior is not bringing God praise, glory, and honor. So I list out all of my activities so I don't forget where do I need. And it's also because I did a lot of drugs, so easy for me to forget things. So I rely on my calendar. Number 5, have fun, go outside and exercise. There are times depression can run us into the ground, but there's amazing things when you actually go do things that are fun. And for back when my niece and nephew were here, when I was struggling with depressive thoughts or just down in the dumps or whatever, I'd invite them to come over and they would play Super Smash Brothers. I can't play Super Smash Brothers to save my life. I don't know how to jump. I keep falling off the end and dying. But I enjoy watching them, those young kids having fun. It brought me joy. Another thing, well, not recently, not in the last couple of years, but I used to really enjoy watching Yankee baseball games. But we suck now. So, but that brings that's fun. And then also spending time outdoors, getting sunlight, vitamin D. There's clinical studies that prove that sunlight, vitamin D helps with depression. I think that's why those in like Seattle, they have certain months where they're always depressed because it rains all the time and there's no sunlight there. And believe it or not, like at one time I was into CrossFit, and martial arts and being in shape, not A-shape round. And, when I was working out all the time or doing physical activity all the time, I was never depressed. I don't know if I was too tired to be depressed or is other factors at play, but I never struggled with depression when I was a CrossFit junkie or MMA junkie either. So
now, what if, the sun comes through my window and I just kind of move my chair while I sit and play games for, 6 hours a day, but I'm getting a lot of sunlight on the back of my neck. So does that count, right?
No.
Oh, dang.
Go outside.
Okay.
Good try. You'll have a red neck with your...
No, don't worry. It's already there. It will not go away.
No, but go outside, enjoy the fresh air. And I think that's a struggle for us here in Texas. It's either too hot or too cold.
Yep.
We have like 10 days of perfect weather in Texas. But go outside and get fresh air. There's beauty in fresh air.
And there's beauty in state parks and getting away from the city if you live in one.
Yeah, I like the city, so we won't go there. Number 6, you are what you eat or drink, right? I wish there was a magic pill, food, or drink that will make depression go away forever, but it doesn't exist. But what you eat and drink will influence how you feel. And not to get a head start on addiction talk, but guess what alcohol is? It's a depressant.
What?
Shocking.
Can't believe it.
Can't believe it. Guess what opiates do?
Are they depressant too?
Yeah. So if you're struggling with depression, it probably isn't the best choice to drink your sorrows away. Because guess what? Those same issues that cause you to drink at happy hour, they're going to be there the next morning. You're just going to have a hangover and it's going to be even harder for you to deal with it. Other things you might want to limit is sugar, caffeine, and soda. It actually make things worse. And this is odd that I'm going to say this. What you should be doing is starting a balanced diet of veggies and lean meats and healthy grains.
Hey, man, I try to have something green on my plate. It might be like guacamole sometimes or maybe verde salsa. but I try to have something green on my plate.
Yeah. But anyway, talk to your nutritionist for a more detailed diet. Don't count on the two fat guys to tell you what to eat.
Hey, don't drag me into your sorrows. I am perfectly fine.
No, you're not.
Hey, man.
Anyway, next is get sleep. Lack of sleep does crazy things to our minds. It really does, right? So there's studies that 24 hours of no sleep is the same as being drunk. Okay, so it definitely impacts our mind. Number 8, be a service and have an attitude of gratitude. I've been encouraging those that are working for years to get out of their heads and wanting self-pity. Go help others.
Yep.
One of the things that I think why I don't necessarily struggle with depression anymore is this was week 6 of my sobriety, and my sponsor at the time made me go down to a for-free drug and alcohol detox center in California. It's called Charlie Street. And Charlie Street it basically took people who had no money. Like if you had money, you didn't go to Charlie Street. Charlie Street was bottom of the barrel, homeless, destitute, no money. And their first meeting was at 8, and I went at like 7:30 because I go early to everything. And I saw this guy with no legs. He literally just had stubs in a wheelchair, and his job was to mop the floors. And you gotta understand, this is not a rich detox center that is sparkling clean. It is dirty. And I saw this guy with no legs. He hopped off of his wheelchair and he mopped the floor on his nubs. And I went up to him and said, "Hey man, do you want me to mop for you?" He goes, "I can't. I have to do this. That's how I pay to be here." And it just struck me like, who am I to complain? Like, who am I to complain? I still have, legs to walk on. I still have all 10 toes, all 10 fingers, a semi-functioning brain. I have so much to be grateful for. And I have my guys write out a gratitude list. And every morning they read the gratitude list. What do I have to be grateful for today? Yep. Number 9 is prayer. There's a peace which surpasses all understanding that comes from prayer. And realize that my Father in heaven, who created the universe, takes time to listen and answer all my prayers, brings me peace. And yes, he answers all prayers. But those of us who have struggled with depression or struggle with depression, what we need to also accept is sometimes the answer is no. And we don't like that. But he hears every prayer. Every prayer is heard. Every prayer is answered. And no answer is also an answer.
Yep.
But we got to understand that God isn't Santa Claus, that, he's not, if we do good, always good things are going to happen to us. That's not reality. And then number 10, read a book. And I would suggest spending time in the Word. I firmly believe what we put into our body impacts us, not just with food, but what we read and watch TV. If you're struggling with depression, it's probably not a good idea to read sad books or watch depressing movies. So what you should do is watch Hallmark Channel.
Ugh. Oh, I don't know.
I mean, why? Because in the end, the girl gets the guy.
Yeah.
Always happy ending. And my parents love Hallmark Channel. And I'm like, why do you watch this rubbish? And my parents said, there's so much junk in the world. At least we know that at the end of this story, there's a happy ending.
It's true.
But I think ultimately what we need to be what we should be filling our minds with is the Word of God. Why? Because it reminds us who we are in the eyes of God, right? Who we are. If you're worried or don't know where to go read Psalms, the laments found in Psalms. Go read Lamentations and realize that you're not. If David can cry out in the Psalms to God, why can't we? He is a man after God's own heart. If Jesus Christ can, on the cross, cry out, my God, where are you? Why can't we do the same? We just go through junk sometimes. So that's my top 10 things to do, practical advice. So now I guess we're running short on time, so I'm going to go to what's most important. And that is the biblical approach. Like, what does the Word of God actually say?
Yep.
Let's go to Psalm 34:18. So Matt, why don't you read? I'll read Psalm 34:18.
No, I can.
You got it.
I can do it. The Lord is near the brokenhearted, and he saves those in crushed spirit.
All right. So for someone grappling with depression, This passage can be a reminder that God is close during life's darkest moments. It reassures that God recognizes and understands the pain, providing a comforting embrace. And by focusing on this verse, an individual may sense God's presence even in deep, deep despair. Mm-hmm. Right? So the verse's choice helps to connect the individual's struggles and God's constant companionship. It opens way for prayer and reflection, knowing that we aren't alone. And I think that's one of the struggles that those of us who are battling depression is like, I'm all by myself. Mm-hmm. And while you might not have someone physically there, well, we need to remember that the Lord is near to those who are brokenhearted.
Yep.
That he cares for us. And it's a vital reminder that God's love transcends the darkness and his saving grace is available to the crushed in spirit. And this encouraging relationship with God through this passage can foster a sense of security and hope. Matt, why don't you read? Let's go to Psalm 42:11.
Why, my soul, are you so dejected? Why are you in such turmoil? Put your hope in God, for I will still praise him, my Savior and my God.
Dealing with depression often involves a journey towards hope and healing, which can be difficult. It's not always easy. But Psalm 42:11 speaks to the soul, urging individuals to put their hope in God despite feelings of despair and turmoil. This message encourages us to look beyond our current circumstances and to find solace in God. The verse's poignant question, why, my soul, are you so dejected?
Yep.
Reflects this internal dialogue that a lot of us who face depression might recognize. Why, my soul, are you so dejected? Well, I'm dejected because I lost my job. I'm dejected because you broke up with your girlfriend or your whatever. I'm dejected because I can't buy X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. But what we can do is find a pathway out of despair by focusing on faith and hope in God, knowing that he loves us.
Yeah, I think what really is important in this verse is in the whole chapter, David is just going on about how he longs for the Lord and how he feels like he is just away from him. And I think a part of depression we have to also recognize is loneliness is a huge contributor to it. Mm-hmm. And that was especially seen through COVID, of how people were isolated from each other, not able to go to family gatherings, and people lived in fear for 2+ years, even still today. Mm-hmm. And what we have to realize is loneliness doesn't always lead to depression, but it can. And it's that inner dialogue that we have to remind ourselves that this isn't going to last forever.
Yeah.
Which is what I have to remind myself every time I go to the dentist office, that I'm not going to be here forever. I'm not going to have a bunch of things trying to be jabbed down my throat and just, die on the inside. Like I'm going to get out of the chair. Mm-hmm. I'm going to get back into my car and I'm going to go back home.
Yeah. We also got to remember that our emotions change. Mm-hmm. Right? Don't base your decisions on emotions, because I can be, hey, when I woke up the other day, I was really happy. Emotions were good. And then my son kicked me in the head. No longer happy.
Yep.
Right? Emotions are transient. But and we need to also remember that this passage isn't a quick fix, but a shift in perspective.
Right.
Okay, providing comfort and encouragement to those in need. Mm-hmm. And then let's go to your namesake, Matthew. Let's go to Matthew 11:28.
Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take up my yoke and learn from me, because I am lowly and humble in heart. And you will find rest for your souls, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light.
Battling depression can be exhausting and overwhelming, mm-hmm. right? But leading to feelings of hopelessness and despair. But this passage shares an invitation to come to Jesus for rest and relief. We have a choice. We can choose to be stupid or silly or foolish, or we can realize that we serve a good God. Mm-hmm. And by turning to Christ, individuals struggling with depression may find a source of comfort and strength beyond their own capabilities. And there are times when the depression can be so dark and so heavy that they're like, there is no hope. Mm-hmm. There's nothing that can get me out of this. But that's a lie. What we need to understand is amid depression, this invitation by Jesus is to find rest in him. Mm-hmm. Not in our own strength, not in our own solutions, but to actually find rest in him. And one of the best ways that we can actually do that is by spending time in the Word. We have a book coming out soon, hopefully. And, one of the things that Dr. Bell says in everything is We need to address sin. And we need to realize that sometimes in our depression, we can do sinful things and have sinful thoughts. And if we address and realize that, we ask for repentance. Now, I want to be very clear. I'm not saying struggling with depression is sinful. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is our response to our depression can be sinful. So I'm going to say that one more time. I am not saying that struggling with depression is sinful. You can't, when there's that dark cloud that comes down, sometimes that's out of our control. But what we do in that dark cloud is, it can be sinful. That if we say, God can't help me, or God isn't good, that is sinful. And what we need to do with those thoughts is we need to repent and not do that anymore. Next is to spend time in the Word. Matt, let me ask you this, and this is not planned. What are some verses for you that you find when you're struggling with depressive thoughts, or you're just struggling with, like, where do you go?
I go to Psalm 23 for sure. The Lord is my shepherd. I don't need anything else, pretty much. Being reminded of that even though we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, we don't have to fear. And I think that's an important thing, that, yes, we're going to be in the pits of despair, but God is still with us in those moments. The next one normally isn't in the category of verses you talk about depression with, but I think it's applicable to our conversation, and it's Proverbs 16:33. A lot is cast into the lap, but its every decision is from the Lord. And I think it's important to realize that nothing is out of God's control. That even a simple, even simple rolling of dice, God knows the outcome of it. And he knows, and he's prepared for it, and all these different things. So when random things happen that can cause us deep depression, such as the loss of a loved one, move for work or whatever that takes us away from family and friends, divorce, really anything in between, it can seem like this is so far out of God's control, and it isn't, because he knows the outcome of every single time a dice is rolled. And we have to sit in that and remember that there is nothing that God doesn't know about. And we talked about that last week, and that's why I want to bring this verse up, is because it still applies to depression, not just your anxious thoughts and not knowing which way to go or what to do. But even in depression, when we think there is nothing else we can do, like even in the random things that happen, it is not out of God's control.
I just want to remind everyone, just, if you're listening to this might be the first time that you're ever listening to our podcast, and you're struggling with depressive thoughts or even suicidal thoughts, get help. Reach out to your pastor, and you're like, I'm not even a Christian. Where am I supposed to go then? There is a suicide hotline that you can call. Every state has one. But if you're a believer, reach out to your trusted friends, reach out to your Sunday school teacher, reach out to your pastor. Let them know that what you're struggling with, and have them come alongside you. And if your pastor says, I don't know how, well, refer them to our podcast. You can also send them to our website, soulcare.io, and there's some downloadable resources for free that we're offering lay ministers, pastors, new biblical counselors. And we really just want to equip you all to deal with those that are broken.
All right. Anything else?
That's it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening, everybody. Thank you for sticking around for episode 3 of Soul Care Nomad. Like Dr. Rose said, all the stuff's going to be in the description, and we will see y'all in the next episode. Bye, everybody.
Adios.